YouTube, what up? It's your boy, Young Wavy, forever. So I came by to give y'all a talk session today. Today's talk session is basically an experiment session that I did. I tried to basically train my hair or train my waves to become wider, than my average or normal size that I was used to. So basically, before I get into all of that, show you what I used and stuff like that, I made a video previously on how to maximize your potential curls, basically to get wider waves. Waves are nothing but curls laid down, so basically the looser state the wave is in, or the curl is in, is the potential of having that look of a wider wave. So the key things, you want to keep in mind, once again, and take into consideration, you want to make sure you're combing. Once again, we all know a comb, lifts the hair up off the scalp. It stretches your curls out, loosens your curls. A comb, can also, I'm saying it takes away definition from your waves because it's loosening the state of your curl instead of having that tight coil. The comb now loosens that coil and gives it a looser look. Other things you want to take into consideration when you're brushing, a slower pace when you're brushing your hair instead of a faster pace or a speed brushing per se. You want to take that into consideration. So slow brushing also helps stretches your curls out. It almost gives you a better pulling action on your curls. Another thing you want to take into consideration, using a bristle brush where the rows are more spaced out. Now, I've tried this before, previously, like around this time last year. I was only using my Dianes, the big body ones, obviously, 8119, the dirty, 8159, and I also was using the 8169. Yeah, I had chopped it off last year. It does give you better control with the palm, I think. But then it all depends on how you hold the brush, actually. But I felt the need that I didn't really like the handle on the brush, so I cut it off. And as you can see, these two brushes are fairly shaped the same. So the main thing that I was using them for was because the bristles, the rows, as you can see, are more spaced out than your average Diane brush, where the rows are more close together. So key things, once again, combing your hair, slow brushing, and using a bristle brush that the rows are more spaced out. Now to get into the experiment that I did starting, April of this year, 2012, through December of this year, 2012. Basically, what I did, and another key thing you want to take into consideration when you're trying to do this or get wider waves, you want to train your hair at a longer length than, say, a 1.5. So I chose to keep my hair at a 2 and no lower between these couple months from April to December. I had about 3 to 4 successful beast modes, beast sessions, where I grew my hair out while maintaining my waves. I just started at a 1.5 in April. I grew my hair for about 8 weeks. When I cut down, each cut down that I did after the 8 weeks, I cut down to a 2. So I'm keeping that length, basically not getting it too light. My hair is at a decent length for me to brush it and be able to space it without losing much definition. Now, the brush I used starting in April was Crown Quality brush, where I customized, the bristles, as you can see, were removed. Now I began using this brush in the early stages at that 1.5, and I began to notice that, obviously I was going to see a change. My hair wasn't trained for wider waves, so basically I noticed that I started to lose a little definition, and basically the brush was, because of the spaced out bristles, it was spacing my hair too much at that low length. So what I did, I still continued to use as my everyday brush, a regular premium brush, and occasionally, so I'll say about 3-4 days out of the week, I would use this brush. And usually I would use it when I know my hair is at its most laid down state and my curls are at its most retracted state. Because we all know when you wash your hair, remove the products, your hair or curls are at their loosest state at this point. It's in between your washes from brushing, adding your products, that your curls begin to retract and get tighter. So I'd say about 2-3 days after my wash, which is usually on a Friday, so 2-3 days, say Monday, I'll feel the need that I'm ready to use this brush. And I'll incorporate this brush into my major brushing session, which is my night session is my major brushing session. My morning session is not that long. I brush my hair throughout the day, but it's here and there periodically. But my night session is my major session, where I incorporate my products, combing, and the 2 brushes that I was using. So, comb the hair out nice, and then I would use this brush to space the waves as I'm laying them down. I'm keeping them spaced out, giving that wider look, keeping my hair or curls at a looser state. And then I would finish with the premium as my finisher, just to lay the hair down nice and smooth, evenly all the way around. I continued that process up until, my hair was at a decent length, so then I got to cut it down to a 2 after the first beast of 8 weeks. And then I incorporated the brush a lot more. I started using it more on like an everyday basis once I got my hair to the 2 where I wanted it. So at the lower length, at the 1.5, I used it periodically 3-4 days out of the week, usually 2-3 days after my wash. And then I would finish off with this, and this will still be my everyday or every use brush, and so on. And then once I got my hair to that 2 length, I incorporated this spacer brush a lot more to maintain, I guess, the looseness of my curls, to keep them spaced, the waves more spaced out. And also, once again, I'll finish with that brush. I continued that process all through those couple months from April to December. And basically, at my end results, I did notice that my waves were spaced out a little bit more on my cut down. I do notice now that my waves are staying a lot more spaced out, being that I'm still currently using this brush. And basically, with the combing, the slow brushing, and keeping my hair at a longer length, I was able to maintain. I just recently cut down, probably about 3 weeks ago, to a 1.5, just to see what the results were. And basically, like I stated, my waves were spaced. They were a little wider. I did notice that. But what from remembering back in April when I did have the 1.5, that this brush would space my hair a little too much, I switched it up. I then took my Crown Prime handle brush, and I did the same thing. Now the reason why I did it to this one, because I noticed the bristles on this premium brush were a lot fuller. I actually left a lot more rows in and only took out these 2 rows to use while my hair is low. And from using it for the past 3 weeks, I noticed that it's maintaining the width. You know, it's not spacing my hair as much as this brush would. As you can see the difference, this one's a lot more spaced out than this one is. So currently I'm going to continue to use this brush while my hair is low so that I can maintain the width that I've achieved. So once again, all you want to take into consideration is when your hair is low, you want to be very cautious as to how, or whichever brush you choose to do it to. It doesn't have to be a Crown Quality brush. You know, it could be your Diane, your Annie, whatever brush you choose, or whatever brush from your arsenal that you have that you want to do this to. You know, it was just an experiment that I did. You know, I seen results and I'm just bringing it to you. So once again, when your hair is low, you may not want to use this as an everyday brush or use this brush every day. You don't want to lose too much definition. I don't want to discourage anybody. You know, you want to keep in mind that if you believe your hair does not, or your curls or waves does not have enough definition, or you're not satisfied with the definition that you have now, you may want to consider working on that first before you decide to use this brush. Because I'm not going to lie to you, the brush will take away some definition from your hair or from your wave pattern, but it's nothing that you can't fix or alter with the regular brush. This is why at low length, after using this brush, I would finish off with this brush. You know, just to keep the control of the width of my wave pattern, basically. So once again, currently now, after the experiment, months passed by, you know, I'm down to my, cut down to 1.5 about 2, I think it was 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this is the brush that I'm currently using now. Now, I haven't found the need really to use this to finish because this brush is not spacing my hair as much. It's just really maintaining the width that I currently already have. Now, as I beast out my hair more when I choose to do so, I will then start to incorporate this brush back in because my hair will be at a longer state, you know, and it'll be better to use this brush at a longer state as opposed to a shorter state. So if you have any questions, if you want any more in-depth and detailed answers, tips, advice, you can hit my inbox, comment this video. You know, once again, this was just an experiment that I did. I saw results, so, you know, said let me bring it to you. Now, I didn't do this for a month. I didn't do this for 2 weeks. This was from April of this year, 2012, to December. I did this experiment. So, once again, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that's going to happen in a week. You know, you have to give it time. You have to train your hair. You know, once again, training it at a longer length. You want to incorporate combing into your methods. You want to incorporate slow brushing into your methods. Everything that will make your curls or wave spread or loosen your curls. Because basically that's it. The waves, wider waves, are just looser curls. You know, when you see somebody with tighter curls, it's usually they have, you know, skinnier, medium-sized waves. So, once again, you got any questions in my inbox? It's your boy, Young Wavy, forever.